Hello again, and welcome to reading through Mark. Again, we are dipping our feet into the gospel to better know Jesus and better know the scriptures. Today we are in Mark chapter 7. We're about halfway through. We're at verse 24. Here we start right there. Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it, yet he could not keep his presence secret. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an evil spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs. Yes, Lord, she replied, but even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, for such a reply, you may go. The demon has left your daughter. She went home and found her child lying on the bed, and the demon gone. This is a fascinating section. I say that all the time, don't I? But here again, we are confronted with mean Jesus, right? This woman comes to him for help, pleading, right? Please heal my daughter. And Jesus seems to have a very mean response to her, right? Kind of brutal even, right? It seems like he just kind of dismisses her, right? Even calls her a dog, right? But how does the woman respond? Does she get offended? Does she say, well, Jesus, you can't treat me like that? No. Instead, she accepts how her Lord is going to treat her, but she still trusts in him. She still looks to him in hope. Now, anybody who has been in deep prayer for something in their lives, and God seems to respond to them with this same kind of cruel indifference almost, you know where this woman's at. But this is what faith does. That no matter how hostile even God may seem to be treating me in life, no matter how brutal that may be, I know who my God is. I know that he is the one who loves me because Jesus Christ died on the cross for me. I know that I can trust him even if it seems like he is allowing suffering and hardship into my life. I know because Jesus died and rose for me that God ultimately wants my good. And so even in those dark moments, even in those times when it seems like God is just being brutal toward me, then I can still trust him. I can have that same humility as this Syrophoenician woman. I can have the same persistence that I keep going back to my God in prayer. I keep clinging on to his promises, keep asking him for his mercy until he comes through, until he grants me his blessing. This is, again, a great encouragement for us for whenever we are really earnestly praying for something and it just doesn't seem to be coming, right? We want to continue clinging to our God, continue trusting in him for our salvation, for the help that we want from him. And this woman, again, does an amazing job there of dismissing that harsh exterior from Jesus and instead clinging to to him in faith, knowing that he is the good and gracious God who gives to those who do not deserve. One of the reasons for Jesus, or for what Jesus is saying here, is he talks about the difference between the children and the dogs here in this sort of parable of sorts, if you want to call it that. Not really that exactly, but Jesus is making a connection between the children being the children of Israel and the Gentiles, those who are outside of Israel. And that they kind of have this secondary status in God's kingdom because the Israelites are God's chosen people from the Old Testament. But what we find throughout the scriptures is that God, despite us not having a Jewish blood, not being Israelites by birth, God still has opened his kingdom up to the entire world. And so even Gentiles, even those who do not have the blood of Abraham in their blood, in their bodies, right? We too can share in the blessing of Abraham, share in that same hope, that same gospel message that God gave to the Israelites. We can still look to the same God for hope because God has opened his blessing up to the entire world through Jesus Christ. And this is why this has become a worldwide phenomenon, this thing called Christianity. It's all over the place. I think that's everything for now. Let's go ahead and jump up to the next section. We're at verse 31. Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon down to the Sea of Galilee and into the region of the Decapolis. There some people brought to him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk, and they begged him to place his hand on the man. After he took him aside away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears, then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven and with a deep sigh said to him, Ephphatha, which means be opened. At this, the man's ears were opened. His tongue was loosened, and he began to speak plainly. Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone, but the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. The people were overwhelmed with amazement. He has done everything well, they said. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. Here's another fascinating example of Jesus' amazing powers, his amazing miracles. Once again, Jesus is in the Decapolis. We've had a number of interactions in the Decapolis already. This is a primarily Greek area. Previously, when Jesus healed a man that was possessed by demons, they had asked him to leave, but that man who was healed of the demon possession went forth and told people the amazing things that Jesus had done, and now people are instead swarming to Jesus. They're not asking him to leave. Now they trust in Jesus for his blessing. They're looking to him for his blessing. One interesting thing about this healing here is that Jesus does all these extra actions, right? For example, what we just read a moment ago with the daughter of the Syrophoenician woman, Jesus just said the word, right? Your daughter is well. That's it. It was done. But here, Jesus does all these extra actions. Now, there's some different ideas there, different concepts of what is going on and why Jesus does these things. But I find it fascinating that Jesus, when he's dealing with a deaf man, he doesn't primarily speak. Right? Again, because a deaf man's not going to be able to hear. Instead, Jesus does things to make it clear to this deaf man what is going on. So he uses touch. He uses things that the deaf man can see. He touches his ears that aren't working. He touches that tongue that's not working, right? And so again, Jesus is speaking to this man in a way that he is going to understand. He's taking into consideration the unique circumstances of that man, and he is healing that man in a way that he is going to understand the grace of God in his life. Quite fascinating. Once again, this gives us another opportunity to think through the types of miracles that Jesus does, right? I don't know if you ever watch magicians or anything like that. They do some pretty incredible stuff sometimes, right? Maybe they do something like make some giant elephant disappear or something like that, or walk on water or whatever it is, right? Some of these things that are quite impressive to look at, but very seldom do they do anything that is actually helpful to humanity, right? They can maybe levitate or something like that, but very seldom do they actually do something that is beneficial for people. Jesus' miracles are primarily recreating the world back to the way it was supposed to be. And so Jesus' miracles are primarily healing the sick, or so those people that would otherwise be healthy and are sick, instead, Jesus recreates them to be healthy again. That person that should be themselves, but instead is possessed by a demon, Jesus takes that demon away. In a place where there's no food and there's hunger everywhere, Jesus removes that hunger by creating plenty. Jesus calms natural disasters. I mentioned walking on the water before. Notice that Jesus walking on the water, as we read it a moment ago, was added to or also included that calming of the storm, right? So Jesus' miracles were not there to just say, hey, look, Jesus is so flashy. Instead, Jesus' miracles were beneficial to people. They recreated the world, removing the corruption of sin, removing the devastation of sin's curse. That's all for now. With that, God's richest blessings on you until we meet again.
And I say, can't be that easy. And he said, and no, it wasn't easy, but we still